Welcome to the Gemini Brain, where logic meets intuition and curiosity sparks transformation. I'm your host, Allison, and this is a space for the overthinkers, the curious, and the ones that question everything. Hello, welcome back to the Gemini Brain with me, Allison. Oh, I just want to say thank you for just the warm acceptance of doing this, launching this podcast, doing it on my own, coming from a podcast or only doing a podcast with somebody else. It definitely was, nerve-wracking and weird. And I was like, you sit there and you're like, is anybody gonna want to listen to my jibber jabber? I don't know. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. So this week, I want to talk about something that I battle with a lot. So I know that sharing is caring, and it's like usually it's like if it's something that I'm struggling with, then you're probably struggling with it too. So I wanted to talk about when logic and intuition don't agree, or when you have a very logical brain like I do, but completely believe in intuition and in your gut, and it's kind of like this battle, this back and forth. So really it's for anybody that have you ever somebody that's made a decision and it looked perfect on paper, right? This looks great. Why am I not feeling it? That is the hardest thing. So, it looks great. You can logically say X, Y, Z, this is amazing. This is what I need. But your guts are saying, hell no. Or even the opposite, where you felt deeply pulled towards something that made absolute no logical sense. Gosh, have I had that. And it has this battle where you're like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make logical sense. I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm so drawn to it. And, this kind of battle creates this tension between the two, that internal tug-of-war that starts to happen. And it's really where it's the space where your logic and your intuition just don't agree. I kind of look at it sometimes we talk about the angel and the devil. I'm like, it's not an angel and devil. It's just two me's, one on each shoulder, battling it out and talking and being like, well, you should look at this. And then the other one's like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. Shut up. Sometimes I'm like, brain, shut up. So if you've ever kind of felt stuck there or really kind of battled with this is what I kind of was like, let's do a little episode about it, to kind of talk it out. So I find for myself, I can speak of my own, experience with it. I definitely have grown up with a very logical brain, very kind of grounded. I'm a Gemini. That Geminis are kind of known for being able to see every side of a situation. So every side of the coin, multiple perspectives type of thing, and kind of taking that step back. And let's think of this logically. Let's kind of ground ourselves into it. And so I definitely, when I, started down this journey of really kind of starting to listen to my intuition, and trying to trust it, it was a battle, to be honest. It was a battle to trust my intuition, because my logical mind was so strong and so present throughout my whole life. And being able to make space for that intuitive thought or feeling, and to come in and anchor in and actually listen to it, versus like you get the little like whisper of like, oh, you should do this. And then I'm like, no, literally. I will give you an example of this. Maybe I'll give you a few examples of this that I could clearly see after the fact, but not in the moment. So, one example, I was folding laundry, and my partner at that time had called up and announced that dinner was ready. My instinct was like, if I leave this laundry, I'm never coming back. And that's the truth. Actually, it was pretty amazing that I was actually sitting there and folding it, because I'm that person that, oh yeah, like let's get all this laundry done and I'll get it on load after load after load. And then I'm like tired out, and now it's time to fold it and put it away. And I'm like, oh, hells no. So actually, it probably had been sitting there for a long time, and I got myself to go and start folding it. You get it, maybe. If you're like me, maybe you get it. So I was like, yeah, I'll be down once I'm done this. And I continue, I start to fold, and in my mind, a thought pops into my mind. And the thought was, it's going to be cold, right? Dinner's served, it's warm, it's going to be cold. That was kind of like, okay, my logical brain popped in. I'm like, all right, then you stick it in the microwave. Right. So I kind of like, it just was a fact. And then my logic stepped in to fight it, to rationalize, to be like, that's no biggie. You stick it in the microwave. Okay, fair enough. Right. So I finally like finished my laundry. I put the last little piece of clothing away in my son's room, and I start to walk downstairs to have some dinner, and the power goes out. And then I instantly kind of had the thought pop into my mind, and it was like, told you so. Like, what? So this kind of shows you two things. So this is, it's showing you the logical brain and the intuition coming in. It's also showing you how intuition comes in. So that was my clairaudience coming in, where I have a very strong clairaudience, and where I receive a lot of my intuition by, a transfer of thought or telepathy, or, like spirit or your guide or your higher self, whoever, placing the thoughts in my head. And they can easily be missed as just your own thoughts. You're just having that conversation. I don't know if you're like me and you have multiple conversations happening with yourself all day, every day. Like, yeah, that's a thing. I'm always talking to myself. But in this, it was showing that my intuition had popped in. It was a fact. It was just quiet. It just is what it was. And I had no attachment to it, type of thing. And then I could clearly see my logical brain, we can also call it ego brain, part of ourselves that kind of came in to dismiss it. So, sure enough, obviously the power is out. My food's cold. That's eat a cold dinner or go to McDonald's. I chose McDonald's. Come on, Allison. But that just shows, the how you can kind of like battle and outweigh with logic versus your intuition. I had another moment where oh man, this one involves McDonald's again. Darn it, that's embarrassing. I'm not that big of a fan. Okay, whatever. Just ignore that it's McDonald's. So I was in the McDonald's lineup, drive-through, and I was waiting for my order to arrive, and I heard sirens go by, and I kind of saw them, go in a direction. And in my mind, I guess like, again, do you do this? In my brain, I will like visualize things. So like what route I'm going to take home. And I knew in my head that I wanted to pull out of the parking lot and make a right. because I hate making left-hand turns when I have to cross 2 lanes of traffic type of thing. But when I was sitting there, the ambulance or fire truck, whatever it was, went in the direction that I wanted to go. And so I instantly just felt or received or heard, it was kind of like, you don't go that way. And then my ego or my logic popped in and was like, come on, Allison. Like, really, you think it's really going to be the road that you want to go down? Like, what are the chances of that? Let's think logically here. And I know you're gonna guess it. You guessed it. I, didn't listen to my intuition and I went the way that I wanted to go. And sure enough, I like turned right. And then it was just like the next street over. I needed to make another right, a little tiny baby street that hardly anything's on. That's why I didn't think it would be it. And went right into stop traffic. And I had to like sit there and just shake my head and laugh. Like I wasn't even mad at that point. I was like, girl, you did this to yourself. I'm like, you freaking heard it and you ignored it. So those are like some real clear examples of your logical brain versus your intuitive intuition trying to come in and make sense of things. A big part of the battle, especially when you're very logical, and I've noticed this with students, obviously teaching others how to connect and listen to their intuition and how they receive it as an individual. Absolutely, like many different types of people. And I love like when somebody comes and their logical brain is like, I'm like, I hear you. I hear your pain. I get it. And trust me, you can override it. You will override it. And trust me, there's times you're not going to be able to. It's just the way you're built. And that's okay. It's, we learn in being able to reflect on it and recognize when we stepped away, just like those 2 examples. They were great examples for me to then look back and reflect on how that was received, how that felt in my body, that how my intuition felt when it came in, and how it felt for me to logically dismantle that idea. So it was a great learning tool for me. And I have done it multiple times since then. But I've also multiple times have listened to my intuition and gone with it. So in that sense, is like some people will be like, I really struggle with, receiving intuition. Like, let's just say you're doing a reading for somebody and all of a sudden you're receiving this, like, I guess in your mind, you kind of think of nonsense. At times that's what it felt like. I'd be doing a reading for somebody and it was like, oh my gosh, is this nonsense? My logical brain wanted to dismantle it so badly to be like, Allison, you're just making stuff up, especially when it came to doing readings like within the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is this, if you're not aware of it, is this like metaphysical library where all information is held with, in the universe type of thing, like all the information. So when we go to the Akashic Records, we can go to individual rooms, whether it's ourselves or if you're doing a reading for somebody with permission, you can go to their room and ask questions, see past lives, all of that. My goodness, I had to and still have to really work on quieting that logical part of my brain when I go here, because it feels fictional. So I logically can sit there and be like, it feels fictional because it is fictional, Allison. And so this is where I sit there and I'm like, how can these 2 parts of me live and believe and have a purpose in me? There's a part of me that 100% obviously believes in intuition, in spirit, in all of these metaphysical things, like 100%. I don't doubt it because I've been proven. It's been proven to me over and over that, this exists. But then this logical brain, she's so big. She's so, down to earth and bossy and just loud at times, that I will have like these little battles. Like, so if I'm receiving a past life for somebody, and it's not something that I can get validated, because if I'm telling you your past life, you're like, sure, cool. Absolutely sometimes there's been where I'm describing a past life, and it, like, the person's like, I don't know how, like, I don't understand this, but I can feel this truth. So even though I have no memory of it, even though it doesn't make logical sense, I can feel this in my body, that this has happened, that I've lived a life, that I did these things. And that's when that kind of battle is like, you have to just let go of the logical and just accept what you're feeling, and trust it. And I think, like, that is probably, for somebody with such a logical part of your brain, that is going to be one of the hardest obstacles to get past, is that logic when you are working with your intuition, whether that's developing it, whether that's somebody who's like, yeah, I know I can recognize when it comes in, but it overrides. It's really kind of like recognizing it about yourself. And when you can recognize that about yourself, then it's kind of like you can call yourself out. I have to call myself out daily. Holy crap. I'm just like playing into this whole Gemini thing, huh? Like two personalities. Yeah, I think I do. I think I do in many different aspects. I find with the logic, and part of me is like, I don't want to put down the logic part. I love it in the sense it keeps you grounded. I love it that, my logical side, it does keep me grounded and rooted into the reality and where we're at. But it's finding that beautiful balance of not having one or the other override each other. What was I thinking? There was something that popped into my brain that I was like, oh yeah, we should talk about that. Like with this is where it would come in handy if Mandy was here. Mandy, can you take over? Yeah, so like with the logical part of it, I think because I have that aspect, it has allowed me to access and view this kind of mystical world, this spiritual side, this really intangible side of things, from a more realistic, grounded mindset in that sense. So I'm definitely not that spiritual mentor that is like into all these rituals. Like, they're lovely. That's just not me. So, the rituals, or I don't know, like, it feels like sometimes I think when I first kind of went down this path, I was kind of like I rejected a kind of narrative or perception of spirituality to an extent. I remember kind of being like, meh, that's not me. Or like, you also see where some people, it's like, oh, it's kind of like fairy dust and fairy tales, or living in this, like, oh, you just need to do this and you just need to do this. And it's kind of like, I see it as like floating, like these like floating ideas, like you just have to like think it and believe it and it will happen. And I'm like, but how? Like, tell me the logical steps to it. Um, or being able to understand energy and all of that. And absolutely, there's an aspect of there's some things you're just not going to have a logical lens to, for sure. I'm not denying that. There's some things that you just have to trust, and we don't know, and we won't know until we're kicking it on the other side. But for all the rest of it, it was kind of like, okay, well, like, show me the tangible, or bring it into a grounded space that I can logically understand or have it work within my brain, type of thing. And so I find I really try to teach from that aspect, or speak from that aspect of like tangible, real life scenarios within that. So let's just like kind of break it down, to really kind of understand the two sides of it. We've really been taught to trust logic, right? We've been taught to trust what we can feel, see, what's been proven, type of thing, to weigh the pros and cons, to make like the smart, safe, reasonable decisions. But the intuition, like, this is something that is just built into us. We all have said, or you've probably heard somebody say, "Oh, my gut says I shouldn't be going there, or I shouldn't do this." Like, just an offhanded comment. And you wouldn't associate that if you had no knowledge of intuition or this type of stuff. You would never like associate that with your intuition. It's Your intuition is a lot quieter. It's not forceful, it's not loud, it's super quiet. I always kind of say it's like this little whisper that's just kind of like, here it is. It just like floats by. It's hard to explain it, like, whether it's like all of a sudden you just know something, and then you're like, but how do I just know that? There usually is like a process of knowing those things. Um, and and even like it can be often like inconvenient. So it can go against what maybe your plan was, or what you wanted to do. So when they conflict like that, most people will err on the side of logic, because it's what we know, it's what we feel safe in, and it's something that we can defend and explain better to others and to ourselves, like to override it ourselves. But really, like, the 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 truth, like, is with that is logic is based on what you already know, right? It's what you already know in your memory bank, in your conscious mind. And intuition is that, beyond that. So your intuition is based on what you feel beyond what's in your conscious mind. So it is tapping into your unconscious mind. It is tapping into this vast amount of information that sits in our unconscious mind, that we have access to. Like, we have way more access, like, not way more. We have, so our conscious mind has like, there's like if you kind of look at it like a memory file bank or whatever, right? Where it's kind of like, okay, the cloud type of thing. I don't know how many times I'll get like, "Ooh, you're running out of space in the cloud. Like, do you want to upgrade?" I'm like, no, I don't want to pay for that. Ugh, I hate paying for things that annoy me. Uh, but it's kind of like that, where it's like your conscious mind is like the cloud, where it's all of a sudden it fills up, and there's a capacity, and there's only so much we can hold in that forefront of our mind. And then there's like the behind the scenes. There's this bank that it's like, woo, it's a library of information, and we can pull it forward and exchange it out for maybe something else and replace it, but we can't like have that all on the forefront. They keep showing me, like, in my brain, as an analogy, is like, when you go to shopping, you go to a change room and you have like 20 items, and they're like, yeah, so you're only allowed to have 5 at a time, and you're like, damn it. And it's like, ugh, like I know for myself, I just want to take them all in. So you try something on and you're like, okay, not this one, let's trade it out. Type of thing. It's kind of like that, right? What can fit in front of mind into the change room with you. So, to understand the difference, logic is really, if you look at it as like what makes sense, what's practical, what is proven, what will keep me safe. So this is where it kind of like logic and the ego, because I always look at the ego brain as the ego versus intuition is very much, your ego tries to keep you safe with what we know, right? Intuition is this, it kind of shows up with like, oh, this feels right. Or it feels wrong, right? So it's that feeling like, oh, I feel like I should not be doing this, or I should not be going there. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, my logical brain is saying like, dude, you have to go do this. But my body is saying like, this just doesn't feel right. That's listening to your gut. There's, another way is like, there's something more to this, like, where you're kind of like, okay, like I've received this information, but there's something more to it. I would just describe that as, for myself, was growing up going to church. And I remember feeling, and not understanding it, but I remember feeling like, there's something there, but I feel like it's beyond what they're telling me. So whatever, the church and the Bible and all of that was kind of saying, I was like, yes, I get it. I do believe that there's something beyond us. I do, but I'm like, but I don't, there's something beyond this, like this feels constrained. And then that's, when obviously I read The Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. I said that last episode. So wow, we're just going to bring that up again. I should get to commission off of this. But it was like, until I had that, then I was like, there it is. There's the more. But my intuition, my body knew there was more to the story than what was being presented. And then just like, yeah, be like I can't explain it, but I just know, type of thing. And that's hard. That's really hard if you are in, like talking to somebody who's very logical and has no space for their intuition. It's really hard to approach things when you're listening to your intuition and trying to convince somebody or explain why. And you kind of have this like, I don't know how to explain it. It just is. I don't have anything like solid or proof in that sense. You just have to trust. And us humans have a hard time trusting, just in general, right? That's fine. It's okay. We're getting there. Our logic is really shaped by our past experiences. So by what we've experienced and felt and have proof of how something turns out. So, like, yeah, when I, went and had this experience with, okay, right here. Yeah. When I dated a Gemini, it was awful. And they did this, this, and this, and all Geminis are like that. And I'm never dating a Gemini again. Because we're pulling from our, lived experiences type of thing. Conditioning. So logic is shaped by conditioning, through repeated patterns with proven outcomes. And, with whether like how you were raised, with the limiting, like the belief systems, not necessarily all limiting, but with the belief systems, like all of these things are kind of like the conditioning. Our logic comes from that. Again, great example of parents, believing in the corporate full-time job with benefits and all of that jazz, versus that's your conditioning. You've been conditioned to view that as a higher value and importance versus, being out on your own, and vice versa, right? Somebody that maybe your parents were entrepreneurs their whole life and completely lived by that. And you were like, I have no desire. I just want to know what my paycheck is and be done with it. But you have to let go of that conditioning of why the other side is bad or whatever. And then external validation. Again, like this is something like we can keep ourselves locked in and restricted with our logic, because if we're sitting there going to approach something and we're like, yeah, but every time I do this, this happens. Like every time I do this, I am validated that this is going to be the outcome because of X, Y, Z. And one thing like I've been learning in therapy and about myself is sometimes when that is such a strong, when you have such a strong conditioning, it's like you are seeking and looking for that validation. So if you are like subconsciously focused on like it's subconsciously like it's like you have this like antenna that's just like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is, I told you this is why we can't do this, because I told you, like I just got validated. All of these things, like yeah, it happens all the time for me, darn it. But then versus like the intuition, that is shaped by, subtle energetic like awareness happening. So understanding energy shifts that are, happening within your body. Your body's kind of like all of a sudden you're feeling sick about something or super excited or whatever it is. So it's really kind of understanding the energy and really like the truth beyond the evidence in that sense. Like the truth, like you don't need to explain it, you just need to follow it. And being able to then see the outcome of when you approach something from that aspect, right? So, breaking down like why do they clash? Well, I think we kind of know why they clash, right? Like, logic is rooted in the known. Intuition often pulls from, or like pulls you towards the unknown. And my gosh, we love to go into things that are known. I do. I definitely would much prefer to do something that I know and I understand versus going in and being like, I don't know what's going to happen, but just going to do it anyways. That's kind of like this podcast. It's going to happen. But I'm just going to follow my intuition and just like show up and do it. Just get her done. It's like the intuition, like that part of it. It's really asking you to leave the uncomfortable, or no, to leave the comfortable, to become uncomfortable. It's to trust something that, like, it's like taking that leap of faith. It's like taking that step off, like just jumping 2 feet into it and not seeing the net below to catch you. Just knowing that you're just going to trust like each step, the next path, and choosing differently than you have before. If you haven't chose it or you haven't walked that path, then you have no idea how that's going to turn out. So logically, you can say, yeah, but realistically, like this XYZ could happen, but we don't know until we do it. I've definitely surprised myself when I've taken those leap of faiths and been like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna say, fuck it. I'm gonna do it. Prior to, me walking this path, this awakening path, I was very anxious. I was a very anxious person. I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder, panic disorder, where I've had, panic attacks. It was the what ifs, the circles, the loops constantly happening. And I remember, this part of me dismantled when I started to connect into my intuition, when I started to recognize it, to even just like my awakening, when I started to understand this world, this universe, this, fabric of existence and how it works. It really kind of like opened up and had me take a step back, to really step into this idea of the only thing that is real is this now moment. And I have to remind myself of that, that if I am getting 5 steps ahead, in something where I'm like, okay, but what if this happens? And then what if this happens? Or like, okay, like this is good. I have to like try to stop myself to be like, okay, wait, Allison, like you are wasting so much time on this fictional outcome, so much time. And you're not going to know until you do it. It doesn't mean you don't plan things or, kind of like, I think as us humans, like I know for myself, I can definitely go ahead of a situation to, in a way, prepare myself or protect myself in that situation. So like when I, was going through divorce or even thinking about it, of course, I was like 5 steps ahead, being like, okay, but what are the repercussions of this, or what could happen, what could happen, what could happen, all these things. I spent a lot of time in that space, and surprise, surprise, none of it happened. None of what I predicted, or thought or could or whatever, because usually it's like doomsday, right? That you are kind of like connected to. I realized like after the fact that I was like, oh my God, I wasted so much time with thinking of what could happen or what could it look like, or and how would I deal with that. And like I just look at this as like how many like trails or railway tracks coming out of my brain and then like spiking off and going everywhere. So much wasted brain power, and I hate wasting brain power, but we do it to protect ourselves. And it was a really good lesson for me in that moment to really show like what a waste of time all of that was, when it turned out completely different. And to be honest, for way beyond what I could have imagined, better than I could have imagined. So I was never to know what was gonna kind of like happen with it. So, really kind of, I think it really starts, is like where it really starts to like help is when you can recognize, when you can be very self-aware and recognize when it's your logical ego brain talking versus your intuition. When you're able to decipher between the two, oh, so helpful, so much more helpful. Yeah, you're not going to get it every time, but it definitely allows you to recognize it and not have you go into like autopilot with things. So let's just do it like a little example. So instead of choosing one thing over the other, what like having this imbalance, right? So having your intuition, your logic imbalance, because it's not one or the other. It definitely is not. They both serve a purpose. Logic serves a damn purpose. And intuition serves. They both deserve seats at the table. So, okay. So, try this. So let intuition speak first before analyzing, and ask, what do I feel? Okay, so let your intuition speak first before analyzing it. Simply ask, what do I feel right now about this situation, this scenario? Not what makes sense, not what should I do, just what feels true, like what feels good. So ask yourself, how can I support this decision in a grounded way? Logic becomes the planner, not the decision maker, right? So it helps you to plan and have those forward moving steps, on like this is like, these are the how I'm going to do it. But it's like going with the, what should I do? Like the plan moving forward. Notice where fear is speaking. So that's that ego part of our brain. That's the part that's like, stay safe, stay small. Like, this is what we know. So notice when the fear is speaking, because fear often it disguises itself as logic that comes in. So if your reasoning feels tight, urgent, or protective, like if it's kind of like, oh, no, like you shouldn't do this, or, that there's that fear-based, right? Restrictive, take a pause. And again, go back to asking yourself, how do I feel in this moment? How do I feel? True intuition feels calm, even when it's uncomfortable. So even if it's like your intuition comes in and it makes you feel a little sick in your stomach, right? I've definitely had where I'm like, what should I do in this situation? And then I receive it and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, so that's fine. Like, you're allowed to feel uncomfortable. But it's just trusting kind of like what's coming in that moment. I have had times where I will have like say like I'm trying to remember like an incident where something happened. Oh yeah, where I think I was like talking with somebody and they had read me, or like said they read my energy, and my first instinct was, oh, curious, like, what did you read? I'm excited. And then my logic and my kind of ego part and my fear part came in, and I was like, wait a minute, is like, that's not ethical. Like, they shouldn't be doing that. And I started to kind of go to that darker side. And yes, I absolutely, I do believe you need to get permission from somebody before you read them. But if I was listening to my intuition in that moment, my intuition was telling me it was safe. Yes, that maybe they did it a different way, or they should have asked for permission, but their energy was safe. Their intention was safe, and I was safe to move forward with it. So that's kind of an example of it. So, being able to kind of like reframe, the way of approaching things. So reframe how you see things, or make decisions, or view the world. So what if intuition really isn't asking you to be reckless? It's like, what if it's asking you just to be aligned, right? So like, reckless in the sense of like, when I think of like, just jump off with 2 feet and don't worry about if there's a net below you, I'm like, that's reckless. I'm like, come on. Like, my logical grounded self is like, no, we don't do that. But sometimes we do, and sometimes we should, because it's like, but what if it is aligned? And what if the logic isn't there? Like, what if the logic isn't there to stop you, but to kind of like help you move wisely, right? So you're still moving forward, you're listening to your intuition, but then your logic is there to be like, okay, but don't be silly, girl. Like, we're going to go forward, we're going to feel uncomfortable, but we're going to do it, maybe in this manner, instead of just like, throwing, caution to the air and being like, I quit my job, bye. Who's paying your bills? That's something I battle with all the time. And so like having that goal isn't to silence one or the other. Like, that isn't to be like, move out logic and move in intuition, or vice versa. It's really just to let them hold space together and understand where it's coming from. And I think like the biggest reflection or thing to kind of sit with is, or takeaway, is just allowing your intuition to come in. just checking in. If this isn't your default, if this is not something, if your default is logic, then you need to allow space to allow your intuition to step in, to have a say in the decision making, to have a seat at the table. So being reminded of that, to kind of pause and invite that part of you in, so that their voice can be heard, that your intuitive self can be heard in that moment. So, understanding this, it really is like understanding, like giving you power, like giving your power back, giving you freedom to really like trust yourself well-roundedly, right? Like as a whole. And yeah, it just I just find like, let's never take that hard stance of like, you're bad, you're good in either aspect, right? Somebody who's highly intuitive and goes from that divine feminine space of, I'm going to just go into flow and follow. There's a beautiful essence to that. And there's also a beautiful essence to somebody that can be very logical and grounded, and looking at that, they both hold a beautiful space that we have that ability to access. So I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope I didn't go in circles, because I definitely can talk in circles. So I really do hope that this was helpful. It's a work in progress, okay? I'm gonna get better at this solo one. Like, I'm so thirsty right now. I'm used to being able to, take water breaks. But thank you for listening. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I am under my business name, The Luminant Soul. My website is www.theluminantsoul.com. What the hell, Allison? I'll just tell you, I have one announcement. I am starting up my 6-month cohort. It's a signature program called the Soul Activating Journey. And it's really where it's like you and other, souls like you, we come together in this container, and I like hold your hand and walk through this awakening process with you. So really starting at the beginning of like understanding your energy, and meeting your spirit guide, and learning how to read energy, and through the chakras, and through how does your intuition speak to you? Like, what is your your unique language to intuition through the clairs? We go through all of these nice and slow, and lots of questions and stuff that you can ask, and I truly do hold space to hold your hand through it. And then we go into the Akashic records, like I talked about. Yeah, you absolutely can visit the Akashic records and see your own and others, and learn how to do that, and then finish off with learning different healing modalities, like different healing practices of like cord cutting, past life healings. Like, all of these things are interconnected, and it's just fascinating to be able to kind of walk that. So, if that's something that you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to know how to do that, then definitely, reach out to ask me any questions you may have. I'm always available. I have the ability to book a clarity call on my website, which is just a free call to discuss if, this is meant for you, type of thing. It is for the very beginner. You don't have to have any experience before. You just have to have the pull and desire or intuitive nudge to do it. Get the logic out of your mind for this decision, because logically it's like, like what? Why would I do this? If your body is pulling you or is giving you a hell yes, that is your intuition. Let's not ignore it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. And I will see you next time.